All right, so the federal government says it's secured Nigeria's fertilizer supply for the 2026 wet season. Early procurement decisions by the federal government have also saved the country over $42 million ahead of peak planting. Nigeria records an annual fertilizer trade surplus exceeding about $838 million domestically. The federal government is executing a 1.1 million metric ton fertilizer program to distribute over 22 million bags nationwide to shield farmers from global supply volatility. Definitely we've seen what's happened with the Strait of Hormuz so far. Joining us now to unpack this, I have Dr. Armstrong Takang, the MD CEO of Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, and is also the MD CEO of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. It's great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
It's good to be here.
Yes. Happy Father's Day. At this point, I'm having mostly men.
Thank you. Same to you.
Today. All right. So we see the Strait of Hormuz remains a major, geopolitical flashpoint, and we see Nigeria, exposed to the fertilizer value chain. What have we suffered so far with the closure? Even though we have some de-escalation right now with the Strait. But looking at our fertilizer import, we're a producer at this point, but we import fertilizer raw materials like diammonium phosphate, that's DAP, muriate of potash, that's MOP, granular ammonium sulfate, that's also called gas at this point. How have we managed, with our imports, with what's played out so far?
Thank you very much. So I think it is important to set some context here. So I'm the CEO of Ministry of Finance Incorporated, or MOFI. MOFI is the federal government company that manages federal government's investments in commercial enterprises. In other words, in businesses where federal government has shares, we have a responsibility to make sure that value is being obtained from those investments. And that is why we've invested in a number of sectors through MOFI, federal government's investment through MOFI. For instance, in the agri sector, we have the Bank of Agriculture you just listened to. We're a major shareholder where we invested to ensure that this entity is able to provide financing within that sector. We have investments in Bank of Industry, BOI, to drive the industrialization of Nigeria. We have investments in NNPC to drive our energy security. We have investments in Credit Corp to produce and to deliver consumer credit to Nigerians, Development Bank of Nigeria for financing SMEs in Nigeria. We have investments in technology companies. So one of the companies we also have a strategic investment in is called the PFI NPK Limited. And that is the fertilizer aggregation company. And the goal of that company is to ensure that we take advantage of bulk procurement, bulk purchase, with the view of negotiating government-to-government contracts that allows Nigeria to have access to fertilizer at significantly reduced prices than we would have had if individual companies went to the market to source for the same materials. The second is that we use the economies of scale through the PFI NPK that is managed by MOFI to ensure that we're negotiating better terms for bringing in the raw materials and distributing the raw materials to blenders within the country. And the blenders will in turn blend the raw materials to produce the final fertilizer product that eventually ends up with farmers. Now, as part of the directive from Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to ensure that we aggressively move towards implementing tangible, practical steps to bring about food security, clearly fertilizer is a major element of that. And what we had said was that a key part of it is to, one, have market intelligence. Two, to ensure that we use that market intelligence to source raw materials at the right prices, to make sure we have sufficient supply and ensure that the materials are available on time for the farming seasons. So as part of that strategy, last year, Q4 last year, we made a decision to procure in advance fertilizer raw materials, which is the MOP, the DAP, and the gas that you just mentioned earlier, in bulk, and we're able to bring in over 500,000 metric tons of the raw materials into the country just before the escalation of hostilities in Iran and, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. What that meant was that we were able to secure the raw materials at prices that were very low prior to the increase in those prices as a result of the challenges at the Strait of Hormuz. It also meant that we're able to secure supply of fertilizer for our farmers in readiness for the current producing season. And that way, we actually ensured that we were not affected significantly by what happened in terms of increase in prices and shortage of supply through that early procurement step that we took under the directive of Mr. President to ensure that we're contributing towards food security.
All right, so looking at the procurement strategy there, that saved some money. It was $228 per metric ton. That's for gas. Before the disruptions there, moved up to about $343 per metric ton. So you were able to get the prices, before they rose. I was looking at gas, DAP, and MOP, saving $44 million. So definitely, that's great, saving money. But looking at distribution, at this point, the farmers need to get, this input. And we normally have the complaints there from the farmers. Some of them say they're not able to get it. There's middlemen inflating prices and all of that. How are we making sure it gets to the farmers, these fertilizers?
Thank you. So I need you to understand that ecosystem, the Nigerian fertilizer industry has an ecosystem where there are different parties that play different roles. At PFI, which is managed by MOFI, our focus is to aggregate bulk fertilizer purchases, leveraging on our sovereign status to negotiate better terms for Nigerian farmers. So we bring in the fertilizer. Second step is we sell the raw materials at no profit to blending plants that are members of FEPSAN, which is the Fertilizer Producers and Suppliers Association of Nigeria. It's a nationwide network of accredited and approved players within that sector. That includes manufacturers, it includes blending plants, distributors, as well as other businesses within that ecosystem. The blending plants would blend the raw materials to produce the finished fertilizer products. And they would in turn distribute the fertilizer products to farmers through a number of channels. So the first one is through state governments who buy in bulk and in turn distribute the fertilizers to farmers within their respective states. And in most cases, those state governments subsidize the product that ends up with the farmer, or they even give the product for free. The second is also through a Bank of Agriculture, for instance, that will buy some of that from blenders and will put it as part of the package that it finances to farmers. The third is through agro dealers, who are retailers who buy the fertilizer products and they in turn sell and retail those to the farmers. We also have other government agencies like NADF that is also involved in distributing of raw materials and inputs to farmers at significantly reduced cost and in some cases for free. Now, that ecosystem allows us to ensure that we're able to track the product from when it arrives, the raw materials, to when it is blended and finally distributed to farmers that have been verified. We also have the security agencies that work with us, as well as other key players like Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, NAFDAC, SON, as well as other regulatory agencies that work with us to ensure that we have sanctity, we have some arrangement within that ecosystem to ensure that whatever savings we're making eventually ends up with the farmers, and ensure that we are getting rid of a lot of the middlemen that create arbitrage opportunities and take advantage of those at the expense of the Nigerian farmers. And that is why we continuously work with other parties to ensure that we have that entire value chain mapped out, and every key player is working and delivering on their own mandate to ensure that when we have savings of this nature, it eventually ends up with farmers, and we are seeing that already. When we are able to ensure that there is constant, predictable supply of materials, the farmers have genuine products, unlike what used to happen in the past, where a lot of people adulterate the fertilizer because they want to maximize profit, and we have a lot of non-genuine products in the market. We're working towards getting rid of that so that you can actually trace. We have a traceability system that you can trace the fertilizer from when the raw materials come in to when they are blended and to the point where they get distributed to farmers. That way we're securing the access of fertilizer by farmers. We're also ensuring that they're getting it at a price that is not inflated by middlemen, which is what used to happen in the past. And thirdly, we're also ensuring that the farmers are getting fertilizer not only for one season, which is typically the wet season that used to happen in the past. They can actually have fertilizer at the 3 farming seasons in a year. That way, we increase yield, we increase productivity, and we also keep those factories working. We are securing Nigerian jobs. And I also want to say very clearly that this administration under our president has given a directive that we cannot import finished fertilizer. We bring in the raw materials, blend them in country. That way, we are securing tens of thousands of jobs of those who are involved in that entire ecosystem, right up to the farmers.
All right, definitely. I hope we can help, get more sufficiency, when it comes to Nigeria fertilizer. I guess we're sufficient in, blending capacity, urea production, but we still have to sort out the import when it comes to potash, phosphate-based input. But thank you so much, Dr. Armstrong Takang, MD and CEO of Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, and also the MD CEO of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Thank you so much for spending your day with us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
All right, sir. Okay, so we'll take a break now. When we come back, we still have other issues to unpack when it comes to CBN's data localization rule and the right investment mix for this H2. That's next. Just stay with us.